Just a quick little proviso that while we are cheerfully calling all vegans, the opinions and beliefs expressed by them do not always reflect our own.
Hi everyone, and welcome to Calling All Vegans. Coming at you from the Wishbone Animal Rights Lab studio here in downtown Toronto. I'm Sue Spar, and this is Fish, our little ambassador of anti-speciesism, and he'll be my co-host today. Today is National Animal Rights Day. I think everyone in this room shares the common desire for society to globally transition from our broken animal-based food system to a compassionate, safer, more sustainable plant-based and cell-cultured solution, and to remove animals from laboratory tables, clothing factory conveyor belts, sports, recreation, and entertainment. Every single day, animals are exploited, harmed, and killed in numbers too massive to comprehend. So I encourage you to take part in recognizing them on this special day set aside for them. There are activities taking place at Simcoe Park across from the Toronto Convention Centre starting at 2 p.m. Let's work to make veganism the new normal. On a lighter note, our first guest is an award-winning Canadian filmmaker who is the prolific creator of so many relatable, quirky, honest, strangely sweet and heartwarming, and just plain fun films that stand out in a crowded industry. And the characters in them are characters. How to Plan an Orgy in a Small Town, James versus His Future Self, The Go-Getters, the list goes on and on. But although well known for his comedy, he doesn't completely restrict himself to that. And just when you thought he couldn't be more creative, he's also the host of PB with Jay, an upbeat, wildly successful YouTube series that uses humor as the sweetener to keep people from putting up their guards when he talks about plant-based eating. He is also a self-proclaimed, and I gotta be careful that I enunciate this really well here, former fat forker who lost about half of his body weight, largely from going plant-based. I've known about him for less than a year and a half, but where you been all my life? Please welcome director, writer, producer, editor, teacher, comedian, podcaster, host, and storyteller, Jeremy LaLonde.
Hi.
Calling All Vegan Show. Wow. So you are definitely a go-getter in your own right.
By the list you read off, all of those sound right. I've done all of those at one point.
Yes. Yeah. So what drew you to filmmaking in the first place?
It's funny. I think everything. I think it's like such a cliche, the storyteller trope or label, but I think that's just true. It's like I've always just been the kind of person that just liked entertaining people and telling stories and sharing experiences through that and making people laugh. It's like I grew up in a family where like comedy was currency. So if you could make somebody laugh, you were like elevated up somewhere in the family.
I have a funny, one side of my family is very funny.
Yeah, my dad was very, very, so I get my comedy kind of from my dad and whatnot. And so I think it was just that. And I also grew up as a big kid, right? And so I learned early on that it's like the best way to not have people pick on you is to make fun of yourself way better than anyone else can. Yeah. Because it just stops them in their tracks.
The self-deprecation, right?
If you make fun of yourself in a better way than anyone else can, then they let it go, and then you can just be people again, right? And you also let them know, I don't care what you say about me. You can't hurt me because I'm gonna, and so that helped too. So I think comedy came as a bit of a defense mechanism to some extent. But then I just found it was a way to just a spoonful of sugar, as it were, right? It's a really easy way to get messages across, especially in storytelling. If you can and comedy disarms people, right? Like that's why in all my comedic films, I intentionally I would say the first half of the film is as funny as I can make it, and the second half is a drama. Yeah. That sprinkles in comedy because now I've brought you in. Now I can kind of hit you with the right punch you weren't expecting.
Right.
And
we've fallen in love with these characters, or we've identified with them somehow.
That's just it, right? And you keep the comedy going enough, and then you bring it back around at the end. But I think the trick is that it's just like whatever it is I wanted to get across in that story. That's where I really can get it in there.
Yeah, sneaky.
Yeah, well, that's just kind of it. Like people want to be entertained. People want to be taught and educated too, but they don't want to know it.
Right.
right? They just
They're
primarily.
just slowly lowering their defenses, and they don't even realize it, right?
Yeah.
They're ready to receive that.
Yeah, and I've extended that into everything. I'd even into the stuff I do now on YouTube with PB with Jay. It's the same concept as like bring them in with kind of a hooky, kind of fun idea, but we're going to talk about some more serious issues too.
Yeah.
And just kind of sneak it in there
For sure.
for the people that are less into that.
Yeah. Do you yourself have a favorite director, or at least one who inspires or greatly influences you?
I mean, growing up, I think all of the ones that I grew up that were inspired by are now have been canceled. So I don't think I can mention, So I think it's just anyone that, similar thing, like people that can disguise real emotion behind entertainment, has always been people that I respond to because I think it's such a magic trick and it's such a clever way to get into
Definitely.
it,
And you've always stayed up here in Toronto, so ever tempted to pitch your parka and go south, young man?
God, no.
Okay.
Why?
Good.
As every year goes by and just looking, as they're about to convict the felon to be the president of the United States.
God.
Hopefully
Yeah.
not, but maybe.
Oh,
like
no.
the fact that that's even an option right now blows
No,
my
no.
mind. No,
Our population's going to double up here if that happens, I think. Yeah.
No, I don't think, but they said that last time.
Yeah.
How many people said, well, if Trump gets in, we're going to move? Nope. How many people
Yeah.
did? Very few,
That's right, yeah.
All these that said that did not suddenly come down.
Yeah,
to
well, now
Canada.
he's going to actually annihilate them somehow. So, anyway.
Yeah, no, so I never had the draw to like head down to LA and do the typical Canadian thing where you get famous there and then maybe come back here. I just kind of wanted to try to do something in Canada, which it's
Isn't that great?
yeah, but it's challenging. It's difficult,
Of course,
right?
yeah. And are you a director who has a very rigid, narrow vision in your mind's eye, or you are encouraging your cast to kind of play and experiment?
I'm all about play. It's I go in. I'm very prepared. I know what I want to get across, but because I have such a preparedness to my work, when I show up on the day, I kind of let it all go, and then we just kind of discover and find things along the way.
Nuggets.
What's that?
Little nuggets.
Little nugget, especially when I'm working in comedy, because that's how you find spontaneity. And so, and especially in comedy, it's like, let's get the script the way it's in there because we spent time on doing that. But, best idea wins. If there's something that's coming to you, I always let the actors have one for themselves. And we always call the last take the fuck it take because it means that it's like, do whatever you want, within the confines of everything. But even, I extended that to a whole other level when I made my film called Ashgrove, which was more of a drama.
Wow.
But that entire film was improvised.
Yeah, I did read that. Yeah.
We shot it in chronological order, and I had
kind of playing little tricks on the main actor.
Well, it was a film about secrets and relationships, and so I had an outline I was working from, but I was modifying it the whole time we were shooting. But the actors didn't know what was going to happen from scene to scene and where the story was going to progress, right? Yeah. And each of them had different secrets. Like what we did is I worked with them on their characters and fleshing them out and what was going on between their relationships. So they each had secrets from each other that they didn't know and then get revealed throughout the film. But that entire film was improvised. It was all about playing. And, we might do a scene completely different the next time we do another take just to explore.
It was excellent. I watched it. Yeah.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, but that was me really wanting
all your stuff, so I'm going to say that about every single.
But that was me just really wanting to go, hey, what if we just throw out the typical way we create stuff and do it in a new way? And we were just lucky enough to find people that were willing to finance it.
Well, and the thing, you tend to work with a lot of the same talented people. So kind of what's the secret sauce that brings you back again and again to these same actors like that? Cool.
I think it's no different than just people in your lives that you find people that you connect with. Yeah. And especially when it comes into working in the creative medium, it creates a shorthand. Every time you start a new creative relationship with somebody, you have to spend time getting to know a new person, which isn't a bad thing. Mm-hmm. Like I always try to bring in new people throughout the process, but there's just something about a shorthand, and you don't have to, and you just know, right? There's some actors that I've worked with on every single project of mine, and we can just kind of look at each other
Yeah,
And
and starting to see these same faces.
yeah, that's just it. And you just, and also it's like, an actor knows if they weren't great in the take sometimes, right? So you'll just walk up and be like, you want to go again? Like, yep. It's like, you don't need to tell them. It's like,
You're friends, and so you can have.
well, that's just it. What's also great too is that you create a shorthand, but you can also, you get to know what their tricks are. And then for me anyway, I'm like, well, I want to push you further now. Let's go deeper than we went last time, and let's try something different.
Yeah.
And see what else we can create with you.
Yeah.
I think especially early on in my career, I got a lot of not acclaim, but praise for finding comedic performances and actors people didn't think were funny or could be funny. And I was
like the Leslie Nielsen thing. He looked so straight and whatever, but the guy is a comedic genius.
But that's just to get to know somebody and you find out what's funny about them.
Yeah.
And then you take advantage of that, right?
Yeah, that's great. Now, diversity in film is a great thing. And having said that, is there an appetite for vegan protagonists? And are you seeing veganism be more represented these days?
Probably in mainstream film. I wouldn't say it is or it isn't. I don't know if it. I think you're seeing more of everything, right? So I think I think what you're seeing more now in mainstream is that vegan isn't just seen as a punchline.
Yeah.
The way it used to be. I think it's a character can be vegan or plant-based or any variation, and it's not just seen as they're the hippie.
Yeah,
they're the Dharma of the Greg. It's that kind of thing where I think we're seeing less of that. We're seeing that that's just part of a character as opposed to being the defining trait.
Yeah, exactly.
Of them.
Yeah. I know it's like asking a dad to choose his favorite child. What's your favorite film you've created?
Oh, whichever. I think it is exactly that. It's like asking a child. It's they're just because I love them for different reasons, right? And depending on the time of day, I'll love a different one more.
Yeah.
My kids know that.
We won't tell them if you are.
No, I don't think.
Want to feel more free.
Yeah, no, I don't think I can. It's hard to choose. I definitely what I love. I love some experiences I love more than others of making some of the movies.
Okay. Yeah.
But definitely with Ash Grove, I just love the creative experience of it and the freedom of doing that.
Yeah.
But doing How to Plan an Orgy was so much fun because that was such a big ensemble of all these different actors, and we became this real little family.
Yeah.
With this text thread going on that went on for years afterwards and whatnot. And so every little one, I kind of took every film as a way to push my craft a little further. I'm like, well, this is the film I want to play with this aspect, and this is the film I want to do this, right? So for me, it's always about going in with a new challenge. So I see them all as growth steps, and I appreciate them all for that because I can look back at some of the earlier ones and go, oof, I would have done this differently. I would have shot this better or whatever it is. But
that may have lent some charm to them.
Yeah, and they're all necessary paths on the way, right? I'm a firm believer of if you look back at work you did 5-10 years ago, even a year ago, and you're not a little bit embarrassed by it, you're not growing.
Well, this woman here, she's an artist, so what she did in kindergarten, I'm sure, isn't quite as good as what she's doing now. There we go. As I mentioned, humor does help sweeten those bitter grains of truth that people are reluctant to swallow sometimes. It can help you get away with a lot. You can say just about anything, even talking about veganism, but someone's going to get offended no matter what you say. Is there any topic that's kind of off limits for you, and what makes you laugh?
That's a hard question to answer because we live in such a time bomb comedy time where it's there's been a lot of
things have changed in
but
the past few years.
In not a bad way either, right? I think the trick to comedy now is comedy has to make fun of things, right? That's kind of how comedy works, and comedy has to be unexpected, has to be a little bit shocking, and that's just how it works, I think. I like comedy that exposes a truth in something in a way that you weren't expecting. But I also think the trick to talking about certain things is to make sure you're punching up and not punching down.
Yeah.
Right? If you're making fun of someone for the intent of harm or to mock someone, that's just gross. It's very outdated.
Yeah.
That's like the movies we made in the 80s and the early 90s.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
and to be
sometimes
honest,
we
the
still
early 20s.
chuckle guiltily at some of these things, but yeah,
For
things
sure.
have evolved. You know,
Yeah,
and-
but there's still ways to like tell jokes that where you can punch up and you can make
Yeah,
fun of.
for sure.
Again, self-deprecating is an example of
Yeah.
that. You know, so I think that's just the trick. Is like, are you laughing with that person in that group or whatever it is, or are you laughing at them?
Yeah, and I mean, it's good too for people to not take themselves so seriously and laugh at themselves a little bit. Like I was saying earlier, it seems like people are walking around now just swinging their heads around looking for a way to be offended about something. There are those kind of people.
Well, we were having
Hopefully,
a conversation
yeah.
before about like cultural appropriatism and like
Yeah.
people, someone like telling someone that they couldn't use a certain term and they're from that culture.
Yeah,
But they didn't
right.
know it because their image online was of a dog, you
Oh.
know? So, but that's just it. It's like everyone wants to be, and we get that. You know, I see that in the comments on our YouTube channel sometimes too. It's like some people just want to be angry and they have
Yeah.
nowhere else to put it, so they put it into like comment threads and whatnot.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just I don't know. Someone said something recently that I've kind of like taken to heart. There's two phrases that I love. One is this: I got on my water bottle. It's like, don't yuck my yum. It's like I don't care.
A
if you
play
don't,
on "Don't Harsh My Mellow."
but that's just it. It's like if you don't like it, I don't care. Like, it's like
Yeah.
I don't. It's not for you, and that's fine. I didn't make
Yeah.
it for you.
Yeah.
And the other one is
love
that if you wouldn't have them over to your house for dinner, why would you let them in your head?
Oh, very
You know.
good.
So and people living rent free and all that kind of stuff.
Ooh,
But
we're
it's just
going deep here.
But that's just it. It's just like so now if someone comes at me with a comment that upsets me, like it used to be, you could get 10 compliments, but you get one like disparaging thing, and that'll sit with you all day.
Yeah.
Right. But for me now, I try to take that and I think about the source of it, where it came from, and I go, wait a minute. I wouldn't have a coffee with that person. I wouldn't let them into my house.
Yeah,
Why am I going to
that's
let them
good.
live in my head for the rest of the day?
Yeah.
And I let it go.
Yeah, negativity does seem to always
so
kind
much-
of. Well, if you're unsatisfied with, say, customer service at a store, you're going to get on there and you're going to give a crappy review and things like that. But if you have a good customer service, you're not quite as compelled to get on
Yeah.
and leave a review. So it's kind of the same
Yeah,
idea.
that's just it. So we kind of like take for advantage, like you said, of the things that are good, and we just don't
Yeah.
appreciate that as much as we do the negative stuff. We give more energy to it than we give
Absolutely.
positive. which is
Yeah, it's
unfortunate.
crazy. So each of us has our own reasons why we adopted a vegan lifestyle or started eating plant-based. And in hindsight, many of us regret that it took us longer to get there, kind of due to speciesism, indoctrination, traditions, early experiences, etc. What's your plant-based backstory or defining moment when you decided you were never going to eat animals?
Yeah, I have what I call like a long farewell tour. With,
The embodiment of the who here, right?
yeah, right. Because I grew up in a very like small town, like farming area. Friends that were cow farmers.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because
What's your town?
Cayuga, Ontario.
Oh, I know. I always said Cayuga for some reason.
Yeah, I think
It's a race town, isn't it?
sure.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
they had the, I'm from Mount Forest.
Oh, that's
Ontario,
funny. But what was interesting is like we grew up with friends that were farmers, but it's funny because like we'd visit their houses and they had like, their cows actually lived in the fields. Their pigs were in pens. So it's like I grew up with that idyllic version of
Yeah.
farm and not
Yeah.
realizing
The
that the factory farming industry was where
Was-
where we got our plant animal food was from them. Like we actually got probably the best quality version of it you can get without all the antibiotics and
Yeah.
all the junk in it. But still, it was like, so I never really took into account of that until, you grow up
Yeah.
and the realities come in. And so when I met my now wife, she was vegetarian. And so I slowly started to transition over to first pescatarian.
Yeah.
And then eventually, as you mentioned at the top of this, I used to be like double my size I am now. And so I finally wanted to get really, really serious about it, about losing weight. Because I was lucky I didn't have any health scares or anything.
Yeah.
I was young and I was in my like mid-30s at that point. And I was like, you know what? It's not going to get easier to lose the weight. What are some other ways people have tried? And I was looking up stories of like, having been in the film and television industry, like Kevin Smith and Penn Jillette,
right.
and all these other guys that had like
Yeah.
gone through massive weight transformation
Yeah.
from shifting their diet. And so I thought, well, why don't I go plant-based and be, let me try it for 6 months and see what happens. And of course, the weight just fell off, right? And so over the course of, my trajectory was whole food plant-based, right? Cutting out oil, cutting out processed sugar, all that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
But then I think as it goes, like as you start eating that way and you start like diving into that, well then like you learn more about the environment.
Exactly.
And then
you
learn, and then all it comes this triangle, right?
Yeah.
Of like health, environment, and animal welfare.
Yeah.
And it wasn't that, and it's funny because I think a lot of people have this story too. It's the allegory of the cave, where suddenly once you know something, you can't unknow it.
Right.
And it's like as you start to learn more, you go, well, how did I not? As we were talking about before we started rolling, the idea of like environmentalists that still eat animals. Like, wait a minute, how does that work?
Yeah.
And for me, it's just like I just can't be a hypocrite, right? So I can't like understand fundamentally how a system is so broken and awful in so many ways, right?
And just put that blind eye up to it and just
and that's what when I talk to people too, I'm like, look, even if you don't care about animals, which is sad, but even if you don't, there's so many other reasons to not.
Do you like having a planet to live on?
Well, that's just it.
Your own hide,
Yeah. Can you get behind that? Like, do you have kids? Do you want them to
exactly
breathe? Yeah. There's so many reasons behind it, even if you can't get behind the animal thing, which I don't understand. But so it's for me, it became this weird, not weird, but like this trifecta of all these things where it's just like it doesn't make sense otherwise to me now, right?
And so many people believe that eating plant-based is about giving up all their favorite foods and restricting themselves. And everyone I know has had the opposite reaction to that. It instead expanded my palate because you do try different foods then. Like you're not just focusing on that slab of meat and, mashed potatoes and a vegetable on the plate. So you reinforce this through your current creative outlet, PB with J. It's a YouTube channel and an accompanying website, and they're both fun and down to earth. Can you tell us about them and what you hope to achieve?
Yeah, so that started off actually because what happened was as I was losing the weight and adopting this new way of being, people were asking a lot of questions. So I found I was answering the same questions over and over again. So, well, let me start a website. Maybe I'll put some videos and stuff up online, and then I can just point people towards that kind of stuff. Not really thinking it was going to turn into anything. And originally it was Former Fat Forker.
Yeah.
Was the first iteration of it, but then I decided to
say that 5 times.
Right? It's hard to rebrand it. But so for that, it was, towards I've always like really enjoyed cooking myself. I grew up around my mom taught me how to cook. But I think it really comes down to comfort food.
He's the cook. That's why we're looking at it like, I cannot relate to this. But anyway, carry on.
But I think, too, is like you get into like the tropes of like, well, when you think of like, I think especially the people I grew up with, if they were to think of a vegan meal, they would just picture like their steak dinner with the steak removed. And it's like the vegetables and that, well, that's what you eat. And it's like, no. Yeah. And so I think it really just comes down to flavor and comfort food. Like, people are constantly shocked if I cook for them or whatever, and they're just like, oh, I can't believe this is vegan.
Yeah, I know.
And sorry, what was the heart of the question? I'm dancing around.
Well, just what you're hoping to achieve with this.
Yeah, it's kind of, there's so many people out there that are curious, right? And especially with cooking, like some of the comments we get on a consistent basis is that, because we show our mistakes on the channel too, right? If we mess something up, we don't edit it out.
Yeah.
We're okay with being human beings. No, we don't.
Yeah.
But so many people, what my favorite comment we get on a regular basis is watching your channel has made us more comfortable with experimenting in the kitchen. Like I was scared to screw it up. And it's like, well, screw it up. And then it won't be the best meal you ever made, but then you'll learn from it. It'll get better the next time.
Yeah.
Right? And also just experimenting and just figuring out how to turn some of your old dishes you used to love into new things. Yeah. Like, for the most part, there's an equivalent, right? Because when it comes down to it, like, chicken is a bland, boring hunk of thing. Yeah. It doesn't. It's no different than a hunk of tofu. It's like tofu doesn't taste great honest
No.
basis any more than chicken does. So you got
Right.
to flavor it.
Yeah, a boiled piece
And
of chicken.
that's just
Yeah.
it. And texture and whatnot. So it's like, it's, if you figure out how to work with salt, texture and flavor, you want to wait for that?
You could shut the window.
That's okay. No, we're good. If you can figure out texture and flavor, the world opens up. Like you were saying, that's what I remember. What I wanted to get to. You were saying the idea of like so many people think about all the things we can't eat,
Yeah.
which aren't really that many. There's like maybe like it's just animal products, which are like
That we don't want.
we don't want to eat.
We
Well, that's
choose
just it.
not to eat.
Well, and that's how I phrase it too. It's
Yeah.
like it's not that I can't eat that; it's I don't want to.
Yeah.
But also it's like I've never come across a dish where there wasn't an equivalent of like
Exactly.
swapping out eggs or oil or
Yeah.
butter. All those kind of things is so easy, and it's almost impossible not to. Where it's like I'm shocked. I'm still shocked when there's companies or restaurants or whatever that don't have more.
I know.
Especially when it's so easy nowadays to make things. It's just from a business point of view, you're going to sell more. You'll sell more by being available for more people. Like, why wouldn't you want to make more money?
Yeah.
But and we can see that.
Are you stupid?
But we can see in consumers' trends, right? It's like there isn't a fast food, company on the planet that doesn't have plant-based options.
Well, Odd Burger, but they're not huge. You
No,
know of Odd Burger?
no, but even like the mainstream ones,
Yeah,
they all
sorry.
have something on the menu, and they don't do it because they care.
Yeah.
They do it because they know that there's a price point to make, and that they can draw more people in.
Well, when that carbon footprint stuff comes up in a few years,
Yeah.
see, but then they'll just buy their way out of it anyway.
There's always that. So yeah, so it's the YouTube channel is meant to educate people, but through to bring them in through feeling like you're hanging out with somebody who is not going to judge you either.
Yeah.
Because that's the other thing too is like I think the most dangerous thing about creating content in this niche, we'll call it, is that there are a lot of places where I think a lot of people's challenge coming into plant-based or veganism is they're worried they're going to be criticized for the way they have been or used to live.
Yeah, judgy.
And they're going to be judged and they're going to be made to feel bad, right? And they probably should a little bit, but they already feel that way too. And I know that, like in a lot of the comments we get, I'm like, "Oh, you're not mad at me. You're mad at yourself."
Yeah.
And it's like I'm just making you feel things
Yeah.
that you're aware.
That little niggle of guilt.
That's just
maybe.
it. It's like I don't make you feel guilty. You make yourself
Yeah,
feel guilty.
only you can
That's
make
how guilt
yourself
works.
feel- yeah.
That's just it, right? So I think like our channel tries to approach people that is like, we'll take you wherever you're coming from.
Yeah.
And wherever you're at on your journey. And I find that with that approach, people are more willing to go that step further when they know
Well, they trust you in a way. Like you've gained their trust by being kind of affable and self-deprecating.
and not judging them if they're like not fully vegan the first day they try.
Yeah.
And that it's a process. And I say to myself, like, I took 12 years.
Yeah.
So I'm the last person in the world that's going to judge anyone that takes a little bit of time.
Yeah. I was decades. So
Yeah.
I started off, as vegetarian.
Yeah.
way,
Well, there's
way
very
back
few
when,
that do it well overnight.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
People do, but it's
All respect to them.
yeah.
So any creative projects simmering on the back burner? See what I did there?
Yeah. I mean, right now I'm focusing more and more on the YouTube PB with J stuff.
Yeah.
We've been lucky to be able to monetize it, so it's kind of actually become part of our income.
Right.
We're working on a cookbook.
Oh, yes, that's right. Yeah. Ones that didn't make it to PB with J or something.
No, it's
like
just, No, it's just kind of a family favorites cookbook. It's just we're gonna have a chapter with each, because one of the things we do on the channel is we review plant-based and vegan cookbooks. Yeah. And I think what's unique about our family is we have a lot of different tastes in our family. Like my son, even though he's never had meat, he's like he loves like faux meat products, right? Like he would be a hardcore omnivore. Yeah, but even
pork chop.
Yeah. But it's funny, like I watch him and he's still like, even though he's old now, he's 15, we've always told him it's like we're not going to ever force you to eat a certain way because you've got to come to that decision on your own, right? He still won't go out and try because he doesn't want to.
It's good that he doesn't want to.
No, but that's just it.
Yeah.
And we're very proud of him that he doesn't, because we, held back and just said, you've got to make your own choices.
Meanwhile, the two of you are like, yay.
Well, that's just it. We're happy that he doesn't.
Yeah.
They still do. They're not quite vegan. They're more vegetarian.
That's the same with my kids.
Yeah.
They were this we're going back 30 years, 30 plus years, and
Yeah.
still not vegan.
That's just.
But, okay.
But so for the cookbook, but
Cut that out, Alex.
we've got him.
Yeah.
We've got him. We've got my daughter, who is like the picky one.
Yeah.
You know, and my wife, who doesn't like the foamy products at all and whatnot. And I'm just I just like good food.
Yeah.
I'll eat anything. as long
Are
as
you
it
a
tastes
gourmand or a gourmet?
good. What's the difference?
Gourmand, you just like eat anything. You just gorge yourself full of whatever. And a gourmet, you're a little more discerning.
I'm not discerning.
I'm just, yeah.
It's got to have flavor.
Yeah.
You know, and so it's going to be a combination of all of our different kind of tastes and whatnot.
Now, this is the last question, and it can be a real deal breaker in a relationship.
Oof.
You try to tuck away a snack for later, and your significant other eats it. Thankfully, my husband falls more in the sweets column. I'm firmly embedded in the savory, greasy, salty. So name your poison, sweet or savory. Well, you can say both if you want, but sweet or savory.
It literally is both. I'm not discerning. Like my weakness used to be chips.
Oh,
for sure. Like, it's just
brother.
Salty and crunchy.
That's it. Yeah. Greasy.
And I've never really, and I like sweet, but I don't like overly sweet.
You're tore into that donut over there.
A little bit, right?
Yeah, you had no.
Don't donut shame me.
Late.
So depending on the mood, I've definitely got a sweet tooth, but I like a nice. I think I like a savory and a crunch.
I love.
texture.
Okay, yeah. So anyway, Jeremy, thank you very much for sitting down with Bish and me.
My pleasure.
So we'll include your contact information and everything in the show notes. But until then, everyone, just remember one of your favorite vegan sandwiches and visit him at PB with Jay. On the break, you can clap if you like. On the break, we'll be showing the trailer from one of my favorite Jeremy LaLonde productions, The Go-Getters. It's a little gem about a couple of lovable but not so lovable losers who are their own worst enemies, and they kind of join forces to take on. I've ripped part of this out of the description of it, but part of it's mine. But join forces to take on their city, each other, and their own personal shortcomings while trying to scam $98 for bus tickets out of town for a fresh start. So anyway, it's a great little film. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it. Oh, I didn't do the right voice. Sorry. Anyway, yeah, Jeff. Really deep.
This city sucks and it blows. It's turning you into a junkie hooker who sucks, and me into, like a cool guy who's hit a bit of a rough patch.
A drunk who lives in a monster cave?
My point is that we can get out of here. New start.
Okay, $98.
We can do that. That's doable.
Can do. Can be done. Yeah.
Told you I heard you climb the wall. Back your eyes.
Okay, you stand lookout, right?
Excuse me! Person.
I'm the glory hole expert. I built the glory hole.
Oh, okay, you cut a hole in a door. Doesn't make you Bob Vila.
I'm just trying to be up. You're just take a load off. I'm gonna be his friend. I'm just gonna be your friend. I'm gonna be everyone's friend for a second. Just. Hey! My disgusting auntie broke her leg!
I don't have it!
just had it!
I don't have it now!
In order for it to work, you would actually have to help somebody else, be part of a team. And that's science fiction.
I hate this city! What time is it?
Well, let me just check my Casio here.
Made up watch as a Casio? Way to dream big.